Buenos dias, everyone. Yours truly here again. Y'all know who it is. Here to cover another doctrine as far as birthdays go. If we are a true believer, are we to celebrate birthdays? And this goes all in reference to doing what is righteous in our Father's eyes. And if they are really scriptural, a lot of the times yeah, excuse me, I just took a shower. I just came back from walking, just took a shower and started sweating again. A lot of the times we may hear somebody say, well, as long as you don't put your heart in it, you'll be okay. We must remember when Adam and Eve partook of the tree of righteousness and evil, a mixture, okay? Adam fell, per se. He was an Nephilim, right? Because that's what the word fell means. He fell because he listened to somebody, not necessarily a woman, okay, but to somebody who disobeyed Yahweh's commandment. Okay, so in this case, Eve disobeyed because she saw the tree was righteous for, it was cool, or big to the eyes and the understanding, and then she gave some to Abel, or Adam rather, and he fell. Instead of asking, I'm just making a point here, instead of asking where'd you get that from, he just partook of it. And so this has come down through the ages for a lot of people, and just partaking of things without even asking if and supposedly you've ever made that statement or comment that, well, I am trying to follow biblical principle. Okay, so as I've stated, and I think in a couple of my videos, we just need to ask ourselves the simple questions: did the prophets, did the Messiah, apostles, or disciples ever celebrate Christmas? I mean, their birthdays. No to both of them, right? But so just like we covered in the last video, when I covered the video about Christmas, the Christmas tree cannot make righteousness, nor can it make sin. It's just a worthless custom. It's just like having probably a worthless penny in our pocket, or on the shelf, or on the floor. We don't pick it up because it's worthless. It has no value. Christmas has no value. But it is a pagan custom. It is a worthless, vain custom, as the prophet Jeremiah stated in Jeremiah 10, 1 through 5. So we need to ask ourselves about all these customs and traditions that have been, that we have been celebrating, and that has been brought down through the ages. Okay. Some of us might say, well, there's nothing wrong. Well, it's not that it's wrong. It's just not biblical. If we try to live a religious, per se, a religious life, or try to follow the right way according to Yahweh's way. The teachings in our Bibles, it's not a religion. Our Messiah did not found any religion. He just, or not just, but he established the teachings by the prophets, which is the law and the prophets. He established Moshe, and he established the Eliah, the law and the prophets. Okay, and if we remember, if I remember correctly, there's only 2 birthdays mentioned in the scriptures. And John the Baptist got beheaded, and somebody else got hung, or I can't remember exactly, but there's 2 examples, as this booklet will show us. Okay, so I'm making my intro by what I've studied, by what I've seen and read, and have accepted as facts, even though I don't accept the facts to make it part of my everyday living, but facts that I have found that are useful for doctrine. Okay. I don't want to say, because I'm not sure, but if, like, you have a house and and you let somebody have a birthday, but you don't partake of it, I think, okay, you might be all right. Okay, but that is my opinion. Okay, again, don't say, well, you said this. I said it was my opinion. Oh, water. Okay, so we start reading here before we get to the actual scriptural doctrine. We always ask Yahweh to come before him as sinners so that he may guide us through his Holy Spirit, so that we may study properly and righteously his word, the law and the prophets, so that we may rightly learn how to divide the word of truth, here a little and there a little. We ask these things through Yeshua Messiah, his only begotten Son, but we let it be Yahweh's will. Okay, always Yahweh's will. All right. The matter of fact, we are nowhere told in any Bible to celebrate the Messiah's birthday. I know a lot of you, even I at one time, believed that our Messiah was born on December 25th, but that is not true. There really is no evidence, even though there are a few studies that show, or that try to show rather, that he might have been born around March, April, somewhere around there, but it doesn't really matter. And some of the facts some of these people use is that there were sheep herders or shepherds out feeding the sheep, and there's all the scriptural evidence in there that he might have been born around non-cold weather time. Okay. So it says, should the house of Yahweh celebrate birthdays? The house of Yahweh does not celebrate birthdays. As a matter of fact, they celebrate the Passover, unleavened bread, atonement, trumpets, tabernacles, the Sabbaths, and they celebrate Yeshua's memorial, because he did say to do this in remembrance of me. Okay, so we read here, a majority of us living in this day and age rarely, if ever, question the customs we all seem to have observed at one time or another. However, once Yahweh opens up our mind to understanding, guiding us with his Holy Spirit to see his truth or to find his inspired work, we are sometimes surprised and often disgusted with what we find. It is a scriptural fact that one cannot come out of the deceptions of this world without the guidance of Yahweh's Holy Spirit. It is impossible to find and come to the only prophesied work of Yahweh otherwise. Only through the action of Yahweh's Spirit are we able to recognize the truth, or scriptural, I can never pronounce that word, scriptural truth. By studying the same truth, we find that this deceived world has always followed pagan customs, which are condemned in the Holy Scriptures that Yahweh inspired for our instruction and our understanding. People are unaware of and never question the evil behind these pagan customs because of the subtle ways they have crept into modern religions. The devil is very, very crafty in these things. You see, like I told y'all in some of my videos about the prophecies of Ezekiel 28, that Lucifer was a covering cherub, had wisdom. Okay, Lucifer knew the word, knows the word a lot better than we do, but if we never question, if you don't question your belief, how do you know if what you're doing and following and worshiping and obeying is the truth? It's that simple. People, let's see, okay. It is our desire to make everyone whom Yahweh is calling out aware of the detrimental effects of these deceptive teachings. We will prove through history where these customs came from and who or what is actually being worshipped when they are practiced. Just like Easter, you are worshiping and following the pagan goddess Ishtar, Esther. That is where that feminine name comes from. Worship in ancient Babylon. The oldest common feature of the ancient Near East religions was the worship of the great mother goddess and her husband, son, the personifications of fertility. The worship of the Magna Mater, or the Great Mother, knew no bounds in this ancient world. Magna Mater. Magna meaning great, like magnifying, and Mater, which means mother, or Madre, which means the Great Mother. The original of the mother, so widely worshipped, was Semiramis. Her husband, who died and was reborn as the son, was Nimrod. Nimrod turned against Yahweh and built the kingdom of Babylon. I covered this in one of my videos of who or what is Nimrod. Babylon was the ancient and famous capital of Babylonia, located about 55 miles south of modern Baghdad. Its old Semitic name was Babilu or Babili, meaning gate. Gate of God. Babel ends with el, and like I've shown y'all that pre or suffix el means God. Gate of God, a designation which became Babel in Canaanite and Babylon in Greek and Latin. Babylonia in Spanish. When Nimrod rebelled against Yahweh, he built the gate of God, which has fostered and nourished all the false doctrines of God worship or idolatry that this world has embraced throughout the ages, including this age. Notice in Genesis 10, 8 through 10 from the King James, and Cush begat Nimrod, he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherever it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, or Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. In these scriptures, Nimrod is called a mighty one. The words mighty or mighty one were translated from the Hebrew word geber or gebur. According to the Hebrew and English lexicon of the Old Testament by Brown Driver Briggs, page 150, this word translated mighty one actually means one who exalts himself or a tyrant. Nimrod is also called a mighty hunter. The word hunter was translated from the original word tzud, T-Z-U-D, which the Analytical Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon by Benjamin Davidson, page 641, says has a meaning of hunter of men, to ensnare, to beguile. That is exactly what the Mormons do, and most Christians. They go out hunting for souls. They go door to door. Remember that. This is Nimrod still in our ages. The word translated before in the King James Version actually means against or opposed. Also means to hunt, pursue men, to ensnare, or beguile. Nimrod was not a mighty hunter in the sense of the word understood as being one who killed game for food. Nimrod was actually a tyrannical deceiver who came in opposition to Yahweh. So these scriptures are correctly translated in the book of Yahweh, which read in the same Genesis 10, 8 through 10, Cush begot Nimrod, he began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a tyrant who deceived, who turned against Yahweh. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the tyrant who deceived, who turned against Yahweh. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and all of them in the land of Shinar, that is Babylon. Okay. We must remember that also the word begot means like being raised in this sense as a child of Yahweh, begotten through his word, the law and the prophets, through proper baptism and so on. To be born is, in this case, the actual physical labor, I guess. From the Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop, pages 1916 through 1959, this is the year, my bad. The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop from 1916 through 1959, pages 37 through 39 gives us this information. A synonym for Geber, the mighty one, was Abir, while Aber also signified a wing. Nimrod, as head and captain of the men of war with whom he surrounded himself and who were the instruments of establishing his power, was Baal-Abirin, or Lord of the Mighty Ones. But Baal-Abirin signified the winged one. Now, the understanding of this equivocal sense of balaverin can alone explain the remarkable statement of Aristophanes, a Greek poet who was relating mythology, that at the beginning of the world, the birds were first created, and then after their creation came the race of the blessed immortal gods. So for all you have seen, man, that just came popped into my head. For all y'all have seen those videos about those winged statues, the winged bulls, the winged figures, thinking they're what are they called? The Anakin or the Anakim or something like that, thinking they're aliens. No, people, that's not what that is. Stop believing in that. I mean, believe whatever you want, but or the Anakim, I guess, whatever. This has been regarded as either an atheistical or nonsensical utterance on the part of the poet, but with a true key applied to the language, it is found to contain an important historical fact that it only be borne in mind that the birds, that is, the winged ones, symbolize the lords of the mighty ones. And then the meaning is clear that men first began to be mighty on the earth, and then that the lords or leaders of these mighty ones were deified. Just like y'all know what the word deified means, like we have, like I think I said in one of my videos, my guitar idol, my guitar god is James Hetfield from Metallica, because I love his tightness. I mean, I just love all the stuff he comes up with. But that is what it is to deify somebody. Even the divas that we see in hip hop and rap, diva is a Hindu goddess, just like the Vice President Kamala Deva or Diva Harris. Diva is a Hindu goddess. Okay, so yeah, those images you see on those YouTube videos, by all means, like I said, I love watching that stuff. It's very cool, but they're not, they're not aliens. Remember that mythology is nothing more than stories or legends which originated in man's imaginations. In some cases, these were dreams. In other cases, these were subliminal suggestions placed in their minds by a spirit being, the latter instance being the most common. Many of you have probably read the ancient myths of Perseus, or son of Jupiter, who passed from country to country on wings divinely bestowed, given by God on him, or of Bellerophon and the feats he performed on his winged horse, or of Icarus, who flying on wax cemented wings over the Icarian Sea, had his wings melted off when he approached too near the sun. Isn't that an Iron Maiden song? Flight of something. I love Iron Maiden's music. It's very cool. They have a lot of mythology and symbology in their music. It's very cool. Flight of Icarus, I think it's called. But anyways, yes, all of us have been indoctrinated in this world's paganism, preached as propaganda in the public schools of this land. The myths of the gods all refer to those who followed in the steps of Nimrod, the first lord of the mighty ones, who in that character was symbolized as being equipped with wings. There you go. Let me show you the pictures that I was talking about, the bulls with the wings. Right there, towards the center or the middle of the booklet. Okay. I've seen that also in True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger when they're breaking them open to get the warheads out of there. Nimrod, under the direction of Satan the devil, was the actual father of the gods, being the first of deified mortals. He was pictured among Nineveh sculptures as the horned one. In Assyria, he was pictured as a gigantic horned man bull representing the great gods. The same word that signified a bull also signified a ruler or prince. From the explanations of the winged ones and the bulls, these kings were God's deified mortals who were thought to have immortality. I guess we can kind of compare this to the Pope when they canonize, the dead popes. or they deify per se. They canonize, they deify, they make saints of people, their own people rather. Like they might have deified that lady Teresa, Mother Teresa. We know for a fact, I covered it in about 4 videos or 6 videos about the Virgin Mary, when those kids, one of those girls was deified as well, I think. And so on and so on and so on. So eventually they might erect statues, and some of y'all might still think that they're aliens or something. Let's see. The religion of the ancient Near East was nothing more than myths. This way of life has continued to remain as a religion opposed to Yahweh in every race and culture to this present day. It is from this same source that is from the source. It is from this source that the celebrations of men and gods' birthdays originated. These were celebrations opposing Yahweh but exalting men and gods. And we know for a fact, according to the prophecy of Isaiah, and speaking about Lucifer, Lucifer exalted herself and made herself into a god, the god of gods. Well, this is a very lengthy booklet. But anyways, I'll cover as much as I can anyways. And this is just to give you an idea of where birthdays came from and any and all pagan customs. I mean, they're not necessarily per se related, but they're related in the sense that a lot of these things, if not all of them, have pagan origins. Mythology, the same stories the world over. From the earliest times, the wonders of life have made people pause to admire and to question the mysteries which they saw everywhere around them. They have eagerly tried to tell about and explain these mysteries. Although primitive people did not have the knowledge or culture to write down their explanations, they did have the ability to make up fanciful stories. These stories were about the daytime and evening, birth, sickness, death, springtime, harvest, winter, wind, stars, the moon, and the sun. We call these stories myths. The orderly collection and careful criticism of them is called mythology. As I've shown you on that book, that last book I bought, the mythology. It's very cool. But here in front of me, like I said, I highly recommend you all get this. It is very, very informative. This is a great book. My cousin Yolanda bought me that while I was still in the feds. This is from Compton's Pictured Encyclopedia and Fact Index, F.E. Compton and Company. Chicago, Illinois, 1948, Volume 9, page 327 gives us these facts about mythology. The term mythology applies to the whole body of fascinating stories which arose out of primitive man's efforts to explain the origin of the universe and of man, to solve the mysteries of the world and the facts of life. The term applies also to the scientific collection of myths and legends and their interpretation. Woven out of the fresh imaginations of ancient generations and carried down through ages of popular approval, ever popular, mythological stories need no justification on the score of interest. But in addition to this reason for their survival, there are many others. A study of the myths help us, for instance, to understand the early history and customs of the people who originated them. A comparison of the myths of different early peoples often indicates that they had the same origin, and thus sheds light upon prehistoric connections of race and culture. The broad human similarities to be found in the myths of widely separated peoples is of the utmost value to the student of sociology and social psychology. I mean, we have what are they called? All these scientists and I just can't think of that word. People who excavate, geologists or something. I can't even remember. And that's because I love watching Indiana Jones, and he was what I'm trying to figure out. But they have found records of languages, Egyptian hieroglyphs, tombs. I mean, we've well, I'll just say we have found all these records, and that's, thanks for the people who write in these things in stone. I mean, they have been pretty much preserved forever, per se. So we have an idea that there were ancient people, and a lot of times they may have had trouble figuring out exactly what their cultures were or their actual traditions were. But in a lot of sense, they have found a lot of cases where a lot of idolatry, a lot of gods, a lot of idols have been found. So giving us the clear indication that they were idolaters, God worshippers. Okay. I think it's great. I think it's fascinating that we have people that have found these things, and it gives us a lot about our history that a lot of the times in our schools might prove them wrong. And when I read these for myself and these books that I have, I'm like, why wouldn't they tell us these things in school? Government doesn't want us to find a lot of things out because they've already made money out of the schools and ingrained all these things into the children. But this is exactly why Yahweh calls out people and shows us these things in records and YouTube videos and books, and I mean everything you can get your hands on, and you start making your own choices and say, hey, that's not cool. Why, we've been lied to this whole time. Just saying. To understand our ancestors and other ancient peoples, we must know what they thought as well as what they did. Mythology is thus an important study. For history and social sciences, because of the light it throws on early thinking, it is likewise a part of literature, for we cannot understand the writings of early peoples without knowing their mythology. I like that. I'm going to read that again. It is likewise a part of literature, for we cannot understand the writings of early peoples without knowing their mythology. Especially is this true of Greek and Roman literature. And what is most important of all for us, as this literature has had profound influence upon that of today, so has the old mythology become interwoven with the very fabric of our literature. For those of you who may not do any real research or study, like I stated about baptism, because you've been going to your place of worship for 30, 50 years, you think it's being done right because that's all you know. But there's a lot of people out there today that have just been handed down these customs and every day just going by them. And they want to make these claims that, well, I've been doing it right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's not going to kill you. But if we've ever wanted to say to people, I'm trying to follow biblical principles, then we need to do the research like it says here. We need to know their mythology. We need to know exactly what it was we've been taught. Okay, like I've shown y'all, I've given up Christmas, birthdays, I mean, idols, prayer cards. I don't need none of that stuff. Okay, I don't need to see to believe. That is exactly what faith is based on. Okay, but it is important for us to one day say, you know what, Oli, you're right. I'm gonna start reading. I need to do some research. And sometimes it's kind of hard to tell people the truth, but it is for your own. It's for your own salvation, I guess, if that's the proper phrase. So please carefully notice the last phrase in this last sentence. So has the old mythology become interwoven with the very fabric of our literature. Yes, indeed, the literature of today's religions, the modern worship practice in churches and assemblies all over this world, is literally filled with pagan mythological customs of ancient god worship, with no questions asked. In the same encyclopedia, pages 326 and 327, it was Compton's Pictured Encyclopedia, we find the following information. Many myths of peoples far apart and remarkably alike. Y'all catch that? Many myths of peoples far apart are remarkably alike. Like I stated, some of y'all might say, I don't believe in, I don't worship or believe in the Virgin Mary, but you celebrate Easter. It's pretty much the same thing. They're all interwoven together. Uh, the feminine goddess Lucifer is all those feminine goddess represent her. That is just plain and simple. Okay, there, all this idolatry is interwoven in one way, shape, or another. That is what God worship has brought and has been interwoven into people's beliefs, their mind, their practices, and everything. Myths of the ancient Greeks resemble not only those of India and Egypt, but also those of the Norse countries and the American Indians. Although certain basic features are present in the myths of widely separated peoples, yet the character of each race is reflected in its stories. Greek myths reveal joy in life and love of beauty. Norse myths breathe a warlike spirit. Those of the Hindus are full of awe at the mysterious and sublime powers of nature, just like the Wiccans. Worship of the deities made impressive and involved ritual a necessity so that the human beings could put themselves in the right relation with the gods. Thus, mythology is not only science in its infancy, but also a religion. It is a way of life. And an important part of this fascinating subject is the study of ritual myths for the light which they throw on the development of religions. So again, we've been handed down all these customs and traditions of God worship alike, and nobody dares ask or question rather these things in their own places of worship, because people are scared. I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want to be persecuted by my family or my girlfriend. People just fear persecution. It's a sad reality. The mythology of these pagan nations, as we just read, is the written record of their religions, which is still being taught in today's modern schools as well as deceived churches and assemblies. These written records of peoples far apart are yet remarkably alike. Yahweh willing, you will see the following pages of this booklet just how much the application of ritual has played in the development of every religion opposed to Yahweh. I don't know if I stated it, but I will, and if I have, I'll say it again. But the worship of Yahweh is pure and simple and unadulterated without any form of God worship or idolatry, any of its practices. The house of Yahweh teaches us to follow the proper and the righteous health laws and not eating unclean meats. It is for our health, people. Nobody can make a better set of health laws than our Father in heaven. It is simplicity. Some of y'all might roll your eyes and say, but obviously you're not a devout student, as there might be out there watching YouTube videos trying to find the truth. But the truth is simply and clearly written in the scriptures. It is a commandment. Do not eat the pig. Do not even touch it. Pigs don't sweat. Everything. It is just, it's very disgusting. I posted a video on one of my TikToks when I was working at this ranch before I had my accident, and that thing is just, there's worms just pouring out of it, just like crazy. All these maggots and larvae. Oh. But people might say, oh no, well, just cook it thoroughly, you'll be all right. I'd rather die than eat that pig. Honestly, for real, I won't eat it. That's sick. A pig eats everything and anything you throw at it. Ugh. From the Roman religion, a branch of Babylon the Great. The origin of Roman religion was prehistoric, consisting mainly of ancient primitive rites and practices. These rites were observed and perpetuated with no attempt at explanation, with no reference to any divine revelation or command, but solely because they belonged to ancestral custom. These rituals had either been found to work, or more often their neglect had been found to be disastrous. Hence, everywhere it was assumed that they must be observed with meticulous care. Let me just give you an example. I covered in the videos of the Queen of Heaven. I read to y'all the prophecies of Jeremiah chapter 7 and chapter 44 about the Queen of Heaven, and how they were doing drink offerings and offering, these little cakes. That I saw in the feds almost every year, and they wanted everybody to partake. But I said, nah, no, hell no. That is not right. So, among many other customs is the worship of idols, images, maybe not prayer cards at one time, but rosary beads. The Buddhists and the Islam also has prayer beads. See, people, it's all been interwoven in those religions. The House of Yahweh, or actually, because of the law of Moshe, teaches against idolatry, God worship. These rituals were usually, but not always, some form of sacrifice. There were, however, many other rituals, such as supplications, lustrations, banquets set before the gods, lectisternimums, I can't pronounce that, circumambulations, processions, and other symbolic acts. Roman religion was essentially a system of primitive prehistoric ritual with many surviving features of animism, magic, and polydaemonism. They came up with all kinds of things that were against Yahweh and his way and his laws. They just, I don't know, they just came up with stuff. Oh no, instead of Passover, we're going to celebrate Easter, for example. And instead of tabernacles and trumpets, we're going to celebrate Halloween, the Day of the Dead, and we're going to kill turkeys, and then we're going to set up Nimrod trees in December. That's what that is. Okay, here are the definitions of what animism is. From Webster's Deluxe Unabridged Dictionary, 2nd edition, 1979, Simon and Schuster from New York, gives us the definitions of the following pertinent words. Animism means anima, or soul, and ism, the belief that all life is produced by a spiritual force separate from matter. Evolution. The belief, I know I'm terrible. The belief that natural phenomena and objects as rock, trees, the wind, etc. are alive and have souls. Wow. The doctrine of the existence of soul as independent of matter, a belief in the existence of spirits, demons, etc. Evolution, people, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but evolution teaches against the creator. It's pretty much telling you here that life created itself. I had a book, man, I'm glad my Father in heaven, Yahweh, gave me a great mind, but I remember some of what was written in there on how the Big Bang Theory came to be. Once there was nothing, and all of a sudden nothing came together and exploded out into nothing and created all the heavens and the earth. Oh man, magic. From Mahik, supply, tect, art, the magic art or sorcery. The pretended art of producing effects or controlling events by charms, spells, and rituals supposed to govern certain natural or supernatural forces, sorcery or witchcraft. Polydaemonism means daemon or demon, a form of religion in which a multitude of demons or spirits are thought to govern natural phenomena. And just for our understanding, we read let's see, there is laws written against, I can't find it. Okay, it's in Deuteronomy 18, from 10. I'll start from 10 to 11. Okay, it says Deuteronomy 18:10 through 11. Let there not be found among you one who sacrifices his son or his daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, casts spells, or who consults with familiar spirits, or a wizard or a necromancer. Y'all know what a necromancer is. Anyone who practices these is abominable to Yahweh, and because of these abominable practices, Yahweh your Father is driving out the nations in front of you. So these things are prohibited by Yahweh's law. It's a sin. From the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, Abingdon Press, Nashville, Tennessee, 1962, Volume 4, page 110, tells us about some of the primitive festivals celebrated in ancient Rome, which have come down to our modern day with their names changed in order to protect the guilty or the blind. Notice, the most authentic clues to the early religion of Rome are the festivals recorded in the pre-Julian calendars, fragments of more than 20 of which still survive, though usually with added notes in smaller letters from a far later period. The primitive year began in the spring. January and February were ignored. March was the first month, the time for the spring sowing, the trimming of the vines, and other agricultural activities. But it was also the month for polishing or lustrating the war trumpets, exercising and drilling the cavalry horses, and invoking Mars, the god or numen of war. The armed dance of the Sali, another expression of the war spirit, also took place. For war was annual, seasonal occupation and began each year in this month. April followed with its Fordicidia on the 15th, the sacrifice of a pregnant sow for the purpose of ensuring or increasing fertility, the Cerilia on the 19th, and the Parilla or the Palilia on the 21st, the Vinalia on the 23rd in honor of the Numina of grain, fruit, and wine, or vines, respectively, and the Robigalia on the 25th, designed to ward off rust from the growing crops. These are obviously ancient agricultural festivals, each with its appropriate rites. We saw, which is I think Mel Gibson did a great movie in Apocalypto, I think it's called, where we see the Mayans or the Aztecs sacrificing hearts to the sun because their crop was not yielding per se. Okay, obviously we have that same interwoven custom that people go and pour their hearts every Sunday. These same rites are being used and taught in today's religions, which shows, okay, in today's religions, we will be amazed to see the same pagan fertility rites practiced in this modern day celebration. Continuing in the Interpreter's Dictionary, page 110, we read, however, we can make out the essential character of most of the primitive rites. The ambarvalia, or lustration of the fields, consisted in circumambulation of the farm by its owner and his familia, family, which included the slaves. Let me see. Let me see something here real quick. Familia, word, etymology. And his familia. It says the Spanish familia comes from the Latin familia, source of family, and familiar. In ancient Rome, familia not only named one's immediate family, but could also extend to one's clan and even slaves. There you go, which included the slaves, as they were considered part of one's household. In most cases, we can also read it as the servants, okay? All dressed in white and leading a group of animals for the sacrifice, a sow, a sheep, and a young bull, or the Taurilia. Vivilus says that the last name was originally a male lamb. I haven't heard that before. Another rustic rite was the annual sacrifice at the landmark where the borders of farms adjoined. It was a ritual sacrifice to Terminus and was accordingly named the Terminalia. Other rites were concerned with the sowing, the harvesting, and garnering of the crops, and the making of wine or the preserving and storing up of seed for the coming year. You guys catching on to where all these pagan rites and customs and rituals are coming from? I read this book, I think once, and I was like, wow, that's very cool. Very, very cool. Three of the most fascinating modern examples of these ancient rites can be found in our booklets: Christmas, Halloween, Sacrifices of the Dead, the World's Thanksgiving, and so on. Let's remember, if y'all might be asking yourselves, well, how do we find these things? Like we read earlier in that source, you need to learn about people's mythology, or, as the Messiah stated, you will know them by their fruits. Three of the most fascinating modern examples of these ancient rites can be, in those booklets. Continuing from the Interpreter's Dictionary, still another primitive rite was a Lupercalia in the second month. I almost said it. In the second month, but on the 15th, after Valentine's. Somehow associated with the protection of small domestic animals from the wolves, or the lupus, which means the wolf, but more specifically connected with fertility. At the southwest corner of the Palatine Mound, near an ancient cavern, a dog and some goats were sacrificed. Young men were smeared with the blood, which was then wiped off with a wool or a lucky material. Dipped in milk, then they ran about the Palatine settlement with strips of the flesh of fresh goat skins, striking with them everyone they met. There's a game like that. There's this guy running around and just smacking people. That's probably where they got it from. These blows were especially welcome to women, for it was thought that they averted bareness and ensured fertility. Other ideas were connected with the ritual, as is often the case with ancient rites, but the prevailing or most widely accepted interpretation seems to have been that of fertility magic. This, it says, I urge you to read our booklet, The Real Meaning Behind Valentine's. It says, which proves that this ancient primitive festival has survived to our present day. The only difference in this modern celebration is the fact that the name of this festival has been changed in order to veneer it with Christian respectability. A saint, people remember, is one who keeps Yahweh's laws, as said in Revelation 14:12 and 22:14, I think. Continuing to read from the Interpreter's Dictionary on pages 110, 111, we find evidence of another ancient custom, also veneered with Christian respectability, which has survived to this present day. It says, it was this early agricultural religion which formed the fundamental and most permanent stratum of Roman religion. With the Etruscans and the Greeks had come temples, statues of gods, conceived now as personal beings, human in form, divination, and mythology. This new emphasis had a transforming effect upon the religion of the city dwellers, though the old rituals survived in the rural districts. The offering of a young lamb to the spirit resident in a spring, a few beans or flowers offered to a tree nymph or to the family ghosts, the pious observance of ancestral customs such as the ritual of a communal lar or a laris, the family genius, or the penates or guardians, or penates, guardians of the household storeroom. All these are described by the Augustan poets Virgil, Horace, Tibullus, and Ovid. But they were in reality survivals from an age long past and were now to be found chiefly on the farms and in the country towns. There's nothing wrong with buying roses for your loved ones, for your girl. You can buy them roses any day. When you do those things on those days set forth by the government, then you're following government laws. Some of you might just want to say, well, I don't look at it like that anymore. But you're still following that same tradition. Okay? You can buy gifts any day of the year for your children, your son or daughter, or stepdaughter or stepson, your nephews, your nieces, your cousins. You don't have to wait for their birthdays. Give them to me any day of the year. You can buy people gifts. Okay? You can buy people gifts and not on Christmas Day. Okay? It is within these obscure phrases that we find the origin of our modern birthday celebrations. Yes, through the primitive ancestral customs of pagan Rome, we find our modern counterparts still being celebrated today with almost the same rituals. Okay, so what I just said I'm not saying that I'm not to put your heart in it in that way, But you don't have to follow the money-making businesses that this government has put out. You all look up the origins of Valentine's Day, Easter, Christmas, Halloween, the Day of the Dead, people keeping memorials for the dead, and so on and so on and so on. Simplicity, people, like I stated, you need to ask yourself, hey, did the Messiah practice this? No. Did the disciples or apostles or prophets practice this? No, they didn't. It is a much more righteous life to live free of these things. That is exactly what the law does. It liberates us from our sins, from pagan customs. It doesn't liberate us from keeping the law. It doesn't work that way. I've seen my share of books where the authors have stated that the law liberates us from the law itself. Something like that. It doesn't make any sense, right? But anyways, it's always great to do your own research and find out exactly where these customs, traditions came from. There's nothing wrong with killing a goat, just don't cook it in the blood. If you guys are Hispanic, have friends, or are Mexican, y'all know that we do that. Well, I don't eat it no more. I'll eat the goat meat, but just not when I cook it in its blood. That's called sangria or something like that. That's disgusting. We are told not to eat the meat with the blood in it. But there's nothing wrong with killing a goat and eating it on any day, but just not on those days set forth by the government. Because some of y'all might be thinking how they came to this country. I've shown y'all in Revelation 13 on how Rome, the beast out of the sea, gave life, or rather the beast out of the earth gave life to the beast from the sea. America has been practicing the same Roman practices, cultures, traditions, idolatries, and so on and so on and so on. And it's all out of God worship. Birthdays, again, Valentine's, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, all that stuff. Ain't nothing wrong with eating turkey. Do it. I mean, you can eat turkey any day. I eat turkey sandwiches all the time. I don't eat ham, bologna, or lunch meat anymore. I try to be careful in what I eat. I'm just a junk food addict. That's really what I am. That's why I've been walking, because I've been gaining weight. But I try my best not to partake of those things anymore. Okay, they really have no spiritual significance. They have real no significance in our lives. They don't make you a better person. They don't make you a holy person, that's for sure. Only Yahweh's laws can make us perfect, and can make us holy, and can make us a righteous creation in Yeshua. Okay. Again, the simplicity is question your beliefs, people. Look them up. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid of what your families, what your girl or your boyfriend might say, or your preacher. Ask him questions. Hey, dude, why don't you tell us about this? I saw these videos and looked up these books, and you're over here promoting Christmas to us. Like I said, you might get stoned, or you might get hung, or you might just get kicked out of your church. Okay? But ask people, do some research, do your own research. I will cover more on this. This is a fascinating book. I might do some more reading on it, and also that book I showed you in my last video about mythology. Again, it's always great to read these things for knowledge. That way you know where people are coming from. But the simplicity to a lot of this doctrine is we are to live and follow and live by the example our Messiah gave us. Okay, so y'all have a great day. Until the next video, probably do another one tonight on that same booklet. Okay, but until I see you on the next video, y'all have a great day.